The waves were kind of rough.
So the boat went up into the air and landed down. I had a compression fracture in the L1. I was going to have to endure a crazy surgery just to get home. No one could jailbreak me.
I reached out to VitalOne at 1-800-MedEvac, and I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, "David."
Oh my God, those words, I could cry even thinking about it. I really honestly felt like I had been rescued. I have no other way to say it. VitalOne knew and understood everything that was going on with me. And within 20 minutes, they had more of my medical history than the hospital had in 9 days.
A highly specialized team assembled with nurses and paramedics who got her extracted in a record time.
And he said, "Don't you even worry about it." He said, "You will never see a bill from me. You will never owe me any money." Hi, my name is Cheryl Claver. My husband and I live in Nyack, New York, and I'm a high school teacher. I teach special education in Spring Valley High School. Prior to that, my husband and I were both international teachers. We planned a trip to Colombia. I was very excited because this would be our 6th continent, and Colombia is phenomenal. It is such a beautiful country. We were in Cartagena, and there were boat trips that would take people out into the Caribbean for the day.
The waves were kind of rough. It was getting towards sunset, and there were a lot of other boats that were heading back to Cartagena, so it was like a big race.
And a boat came in front of us, and it had a giant wake. And I looked at this captain, and he went as fast as he could and climbed up over the wake. So the boat went up into the air and landed down. That boat landed so hard on the water, it was unbelievable. And I had caught air. I must have had like 2 feet of air underneath me before I landed down on my bottom on the boat. I knew I needed to go to the hospital. So we waited until the ambulance arrived.
And then we get to the hospital, and that's where the fun starts.
They took us into the emergency room and they took x-rays. I was a little bit surprised that they didn't do more than just take an x-ray. And eventually we ended up in a room in the hospital. So the x-ray came back and it said that I had a compression fracture in the L1. And when the surgeon looked at me, he didn't touch me, he didn't touch my leg, he didn't say anything to me. He just said, usually in these situations, we recommend surgery. And I said, what kind of surgery? He said, well, we're gonna put 6 screws in your spine. So we'll come back in a few days and it'll be $28,000. And I freaked out. I was like, absolutely not. Like, that is not happening. We are not putting screws in my spine, like, no. And I was trying to get back to the United States, and my insurance company did not want to let me leave because the doctor recommended a surgery, and I refused the surgery. And I was feeling like I was going to have to endure a crazy surgery just to get home. You know, I had a lot of fight in me. I really just wanted to get out of there. I was calling lawyers. I was calling every connection that I had. I was calling the American Embassy in Bogota. I had embassy people on the way coming to see me. No one could jailbreak me. And I was just like in a trapped situation. We were in contact with David Kaufer, who's a chiropractor. He's a really good friend of ours. And he has a practice here in Suffern.
My name is Dr. David Kaufer. I've been in practice for 36 years. My partner and I were away on vacation. We started to receive texts from Brian and Cheryl, friends of mine for the last 45 years. Cheryl is a public school teacher. Apparently, she sustained an injury while on a boat. She was told by one of the medical practitioners that she needed surgery. I told her she should not rush into surgery until further evaluation was conducted, such as CAT scan, MRIs, etc. Days passed. No intervention with medical doctors, it seems. I knew they needed to get home at that point. And I told them that I was going to reach out to a contact I know at VitalOne. I reached out to VitalOne at 1-800-MedEvac. I'll never forget what he said to me. He said, David, he goes, we'll have him out before Shabbos. And I thought that was most amazing. He said, I will take care of it from this point on.
And I was laying in my bed, and a few minutes later, the phone rang. Isaac called me from VitalOne, and he said, oh my God, I heard the whole story that happened to you. And he said, don't worry, we'll have you home by Shabbos. Oh my God, those words, I could cry even thinking about it. And I was like, wow, that would be insane. Could you imagine if I got out today by the end of the day? I really couldn't believe it. And all of a sudden the door burst open, and the VitalOne nurses came in, and the ambulance driver came in, and it felt like there were superheroes coming in the room. I heard American English. I'm like, oh my God, this is wonderful. Look at them. They're like, we're here for you. We're coming to take you out. And I felt like, I really honestly felt like I had been rescued. I have no other way to say it. They just came in with like such energy, and it just felt wonderful. Like I felt like I was being, I was like airlifted out of the hospital. It definitely got me out of Colombia for Shabbos, 100%. So it was just such a good feeling, like to finally feel like I was free from that trap. I was very nervous leaving the hospital because I had a bone fragment near my neural canal. So any wrong move absolutely could have paralyzed me. So I was very, very nervous. But I felt like VitalOne knew and understood everything that was going on with me. Within 20 minutes, they had more of my medical history than the hospital had in 9 days. And the transition from the hospital to the ambulance to the airplane was really like seamless. It felt like I was, just floating into each different transportation situation.
The staff, the nurses, and the pilot, the co-pilot, they were great. They had converted this like Learjet or whatever it was into a flying hospital.
The plane ride was really only a few hours, and I just felt very comfortable in the plane. The nurses were around me at all times, trying to make sure that I was comfortable, asking me if I needed medication, if I was cold, if I needed anything. And when I was very concerned about the bone fragment and hitting turbulence, they explained to me that because it was a medevac flight, it would be flying at a higher altitude and faster. And because of that, VitalOne could ensure my safety on that flight.
VitalOne initially received a call through 1-800-MedEvac about Cheryl. A longtime school teacher was vacationing in the Caribbean and experienced a boating accident where she fell and fractured her back. She was stuck in the hospital and had nowhere to turn. She was confused. She tried calling anyone for help. No one was able to help her. With that phone call to 1-800-MedEvac, a highly specialized team assembled with nurses and paramedics who got her not only extracted in a record time, but with all the highly specialized equipment and sensitivity she needed, brought her over to Broward and got her the care she needed. Cheryl was able to get her insurance advocacy and bed placement, as well as making sure that her medical insurance, which she had in place, covered the flight with zero cost to the patient.
So they brought us to Broward Medical Center, which is a level 1 trauma hospital that has an MRI machine. So I had an MRI, and I had the most wonderful doctors that took care of me right away. I felt like my healing suddenly began when I got to that Broward Medical Center.
She just fought like hell to get better, and it was a slow process. Walking again. She started doing CrossFit and started running. As a matter of fact, she just did a 10K race, the Halloween Sleepy Hollow race. Ran it, finished it. Yep. So can't stop her now.
It was really incredible that after all those days of calling my insurance company and really struggling to try to figure out how I was going to get out of Colombia, that all it really took was one phone call. And I was nervous. I spoke to Isaac. I'm like, oh my God, how much is this going to cost? Because I had no idea how much the cost of a medevac flight was going to be. And he said, don't you even worry about it. He said, you will never see a bill from me. He said, you will never see a bill from me. You will never owe me any money. He said, we're just going to come and get you. And he was 100% right. I never had any kind of financial obligation after that.